All bodily fluids are infectious. I repeat, all bodily fluids are infectious. More reports on the hour.
Then he said that if I wasn't good enough for my own family, then I wasn't good enough for his. Come down to my...
Your mama's dead.
I put on top of your arm.
Hello everyone, this is Gruesome Herzog's Horror Movie Review. My special guest tonight is Sal Lizard. How you doing, Sal?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Wonderful. Questions I'm going to ask you first. Creature from the Hillbilly Lagoon, 2005.
Yeah, what about that?
I like that. That's a good question. I mean, question with a question. You played Buford, right? So now, what exactly?
Yeah, I was Buford. Uh-huh.
Now, what exactly is that about?
Creature from the Hillbilly Lagoon was actually originally entitled Seepage, and but it was, I believe, once the distributor bought it, they wanted to rename it because it's coming out at the same time that Creature from the Black Lagoon was celebrating its 25th year. So they renamed it from Seepage to Creature from the Hillbilly Lagoon. But it basically, it's about a barrel. These guys are dumping toxic waste. And rather than disposing of it correctly, they're just dumping it in the river. And so, as these biohazardous materials leach out, they are actually transforming, mutating the fish.
Oh.
And they also, so this creature, this fish-like humanoid, I guess you could say, winds up attacking folks. Strangely enough, though, even the townspeople, some of them start morphing because of their exposure to it.
And I take it that it won an award for the best genre crossover horror comedy, Richard Griffin?
Yeah, Richard Griffin. I tell you what, he puts out some really good material. I mean, he's an award-winning director, and what he does is he gets hired as a director to do other people's work, but his own work, he basically creates movies they're comic books on the screen.
Okay.
Sort of along the same lines as what Marvel Comics has been doing.
Okay. On DVD or no?
Oh yeah, Creature from the Hillbilly Lagoon, and I got to tell you, I was really proud of the fact that the very first movie I was in was Feeding the Masses, which was a Richard Griffin film, and what happened was that one and Seepage both wound up at Blockbuster Videos. So I was living in a little town, Circleville, Ohio, and at the Blockbuster there, they put up a photo of me and said, local actor has, these videos here. And the one thing they had to do, because Blockbuster had this deal where if you rented the video and you decide to keep it, they would just charge your card and they would reorder another one. And they couldn't keep them in stock because people kept renting the video, and then they would just hang on to it. And so I would go, like when I go downtown to maybe one of the bars or something, every now and again somebody would walk up to me with one of these videos and ask me to sign the thing. So it was kind of funny that they couldn't. I'd send people down to Blockbuster to see it, and they'd never had it because they had to keep reordering it.
That's cool. That's good for you guys. That's good for you guys.
Oh yeah, it is. As a matter of fact, it was fun for me because, it was one of the few times where I really got to enjoy a little local celebrity. And is that the right word? Celebrity, anyway.
Well, hey, you're a celebrity.
Hey, if you don't know the word, just make it up.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really consider myself so much of a celebrity as much as a sub-celebrity. Sort of a sub-celebrity, a legend in my own mind. What happens is, I kind of am doing the horror convention circuits, but I'm still, for the most part, I'm always amazed because I'm relatively new to this, in a manner of speaking, and I haven't been in any. Well, I have now, but originally I wasn't in any of the big screen type movies, and so when I would go someplace and people would walk up to me and say, "Oh, I saw you in this," or "I saw you in that," it just really kind of amazed me because I just never anticipated that happening.
Right. So, after a while, you get your own cult following, basically.
As a matter of fact, one of the proudest days that I had was when somebody said to me, check out this blog. And I looked on the blog, and there was a gal had written an entry where she said that she had met me at a convention and that she thought I was a nice guy and she was going to make it her job to find every single film I had been in. And I thought that was pretty cool because even I don't have copies of every single film I've been in. But she was my first fan. And recently I was at the famous Monsters of Horror convention in Indianapolis. And there was about 40 actors or so there. I mean, well, actually more than that. But there's a whole lot of actors. And I had this one gal who came up to me and she goes, do you mind if I join you for a moment? And I said, oh, no. Go right ahead. This was at the VIP party. Okay. She goes, I'm a big fan of yours. And I said, oh, you are? And she goes, yeah, I've seen your work. And I said, oh, great. It's always great to meet another fan. And she goes, wait a minute, you already have fans? And I said, oh, sure, I've got a few. And she goes, oh, do you have a stalker yet? And I said, not to my knowledge. She goes, okay, then I'm your first official stalker.
That's funny.
I said, can you swing by my table and pick up a business card? And she goes, yeah. I said, okay, it's got my contact information on there. I don't know how I can make it any easier for you.
That's funny. You have that humor.
Yes.
Now, your next movie, Abe's Tomb.
Okay.
Explain. Tell the people about Abe's Tomb.
Abe's Tomb was written, it's kind of interesting. It's a vampire film that was shot in Ohio. And there's a fellow named Carl Merritt who actually is he's written several novels that have won awards and stuff. And Carl decided to make a movie, turn one of his books into a movie. So, interestingly enough, though, you know how it is when you're first starting off. He was not only was he the writer and he was the producer, but he also wound up directing it. And he used some of the folks that worked with him to work the camera. And it was an interesting film. I had a lot of fun on it. There was the one thing that was funny is I'm a comedian also, and I can't help it. I'm like a little boy with a big red button. If I see that opening, I just have to take it. So Carl, he's trying to shoot this serious movie, and me, I'm kind of wanting to interject a little humor into it. So there's a place in there where this vampire walks into this barn with other vampires and makes this statement about, they're going to be drinking the blood of man. And I said, now's when you need the little gay guy to jump up and go, yummy, yummy, man in my tongue. And Carl's like, Sal, I'm trying to make a serious film. And I was behind him, joking around and stuff, and people would start to laugh, and he would say, quit that. But there was a place where in the movie, I don't want to give away a lot, but there was a place where Carl said to me, because of the fact that we were running out of daylight, he goes, why don't you take these folks off and you shoot this scene while I concentrate on this scene over here? So when I went there, I thought the scene was really boring. So what I did was I said, you know what, since Carl told me to direct this scene, we're going to make some changes. So I did this thing, and it was a completely different outcome for that particular scene, although it didn't really affect the movie as a whole. But I have to say that when I did that, Carl was a little bit upset with me for doing this, but when he screened it at Cinema Wasteland, everybody was watching it, and there were people, you could see that they were involved with the film. But when they came to this part, people started cheering and clapping. So, and my good friend Ray Bastian was in the film also. As a matter of fact, he was one of the leading characters in the film, and a good friend of Carl's. And Ray told me that every time it went to a film festival, at that same spot, there was always the same reaction from the crowd. And it kind of, Ray told me it irritated Carl a little bit because he didn't particularly like that. But, and needless to say, Carl's a good guy. It's just that, he and I just can't help myself. He wanted to write this really serious piece. And obviously with Next Door, which is my most recent movie, which I produced, it's a very serious piece also. Now, and I can't think of a single joke that's in there that actually made the film, but we were joking around on the set a lot because I can't help it. People have to laugh.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So that's Abe's Tomb. Have you seen it?
Not yet.
Okay, because you'll see the spot that I'm talking about when you do. I mean, nobody misses it. Everybody who comes up to me and talks about Abe's Tomb tells me, "Oh, I love that spot where you did whatever I did." So notice I'm careful not to give away anything.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question now. I always wondered this. On the movie I Am Legend, okay, it has you listed being in it, but it says uncredited. Now, what does that exactly mean? Well,
it's something that happened. See, when there was 1,200 extras on that set for the scene where everybody's evacuating New York.
Okay.
You've seen that movie. Okay, where everybody's parking their cars and they're running to try to get on the boat, or the helicopters, I guess it is.
Right.
And what happened, and they've got to go through that screening process, 1,200 extras. And so this was shot at the base of the Brooklyn Bridge. Now, not everybody can be up front, and one of the things that people said to me was, I hate being way back here in the back, so they kept trying to every time they would yell reset or something, certain people would try to get up close so that they could make sure they were near Will Smith and maybe get a little FaceTime on the camera.
Right.
And folks said to me, they were saying, aren't you going to try to go up there? And I kept saying, no, somebody's got to be in the back, and this is kind of where I've been told I need to be, so this is where I'm going to stay because, not everybody can be up front. They've got to be able to just see heads, and bodies, and even if you can't make them out. So I stayed back in the back. Now, the other thing that happened was they can't put you in a film unless they've got a release. And for some strange reason, people want to come up and talk to me. It might have something to do with my appearance. I look like a friendly fellow, I suppose. So almost every time they would get ready to yell action, somebody would tap me on the shoulder, be a guy and his wife or somebody who was a couple out for a stroll, and they'd tap me on the shoulder and say, "What's going on here?" And I'd say, "Well, we're in the process of shooting a film." And they'd go, "Really? That's kind of cool." About that time, they'd yell action, and I'd go running up, just like other people would. And then as soon as they yelled cut, I'd look, and there was this couple right next to me. In other words, they ran up also. And once they start looking through that footage, if they see people who they don't have releases for, they edit that part out. So while I was at the base of the Brooklyn Bridge with another 1,199 actors being extras, what happened was, I was there for 6 days. You can't see me anywhere in the footage. And so, since I didn't, and of course they didn't credit those 1,200 extras either.
Right.
Otherwise it'd take forever. So you're uncredited, but you were actually in the film.
Oh.
And somebody can put you in there, or you can edit the IMDb. It's kind of frowned upon because if all you do is extra stuff, some people say, well, that really doesn't help your career for people to see all these uncredited. But I know an actress in Boston where if you look at her IMDb, there may be 30 or 40 entries there, but every one of them say uncredited because she's always an extra in the movies.
Okay.
And So it does show that you did some work on those sets. It just means that you weren't significant enough to get a named part.
Oh, okay.
So, yep, I was the white-haired guy that looked like Santa, and a lot of people wanted to stand near me because they said, if I can pick you out in the crowd, then, I'll know where I'm at. But I never saw me, and I looked at every version I could, and somebody told me that there's one particular trailer that if you go real slow frame by frame, you can spot me.
Right.
But I'm not that hung up on it. So,
well,
I've got the paycheck or pay stubs.
Well,
so, that's good enough for me.
The next film, I guess you played a Santa Claus in the box.
In the box, that's right. That was a fun thing because I got to tell you, the box has been one of my favorite movies, and it's not just because it's a big screen movie and I'm obviously noticeable in it, but I was driving from Ohio to New Hampshire, the Boston area actually, because I would come here to be a Santa each Christmas. And as I'm driving along, my cell phone rings, and a guy says to me, "Hey, they're casting for a film in Boston, so you might want to get in on it." And I said, "Well, what are they looking for?" And he said, "Well, they're looking for men and women, children and adults. They're looking for people who look like they're over 60, and they're also looking for people who have longer hair like the 60s style haircuts." And I said, "Wow, I fit in quite a few of those categories." And so they said, "Okay, well, they're holding a call between 10 and 4 p.m. So I set my GPS to the address, and I drove right on into Boston. And when I got there, the line was super, super long, and it was like 20 minutes after 3 when I got there. So I jokingly said, "Oh, my gosh, how are they going to see all these people by 4 o'clock? And the guy says to me, "You have to go up to the front of the line and get a size sheet. If you have the size sheet, they'll see you, but they're going to quit handing them out at 4 o'clock. So I go up to the front of the line to get the size sheet, and the person that's there goes, "Oh, my gosh, they're going to want to see you right away." So he hands me the size sheet, and he puts a little yellow Post-it note on my shirt and has me stand at the front of the line. Now, everybody's kind of looking at me, and he leaves and comes back with this other person. She goes, "Oh, my gosh, you're right. You, come with me." So then she takes me into this other room where people are practicing some lines and stuff. And she goes, "You wait right here." And some folks kind of looking at me, and I'm kind of curious as to what's going on. And then she comes back with another girl who says, "Oh, come on in here." And so I go walking into this room with her, and she goes, "Look at who I've got." And this gal turns around. She goes, "Oh, my God." She goes, "I've been waiting for you all day." And I thought, wow. I've been in a couple of dozen independent films, and some of them were shot in the Boston area, and I thought, wow, this is my lucky day.
Right. Somebody
actually wanted to hire me. And then she says to me very seriously, "Can you play Santa?" And I said, I just went into character. I just went, "Oh, are you kidding me? 2 months out of the year, I am Santa." And she goes, "Really?" And I says, "Yes, I'm a professional Santa. I even have my own suits." And she goes, "You do?" And I said, "Yes." So, costuming wouldn't be an issue. And she said, "Somebody get his schedule and his sizes, and let's get a couple of photos of him, too." And then she gets on the phone, and I hear her say, "I think we found our crazy Santa," which, I was like, "Crazy Santa?" Question mark in the But then I said to her, "Does this mean I have the part?" And she goes, "Well, to be honest with you, if another Santa comes in, then you could conceivably not get the part. But we've been here all day, and you're the first guy who looked like Santa that came through the door. So unless something happens, then you should have the part." So I went home with anticipation, and several days later, I get the phone call and find out I do, in fact, have the part. Now, the really cool thing about it is I look enough like Santa that when I showed up on the set, the first night, we're shooting this snowy night, and, it's for the road scene. I think you know what I mean if you've seen the film. And I had a stunt double. And the really cool thing was, here I've got a stunt double for my first really big picture as far as I'm concerned. Colder than heck that night, and we're standing out there, and the wind's blowing, and the snow's blowing into my face. And it was okay, me and Paul Marini, the guy that played my stunt double, we both had to put up with it. But it was kind of cool because we'd hang out together. He's like trying to eat a hot dog during the the lunch thing, and he's like, how in the hell can you eat with this thing? Because, you know, he had on a fake mustache and all that.
Right.
They had made the hair and wig set for him. But the cool thing about it was they would every now and again yell over the radio, which he carried with him, okay, we need stunt Santa, or okay, we need real Santa. And so
that's funny.
But the very next time for the film shoot was for the scene where I'm standing out inside the auditorium for the play. And so when I showed up at the school, I walk into a room and there's like 200 children and, you know, and their parents. So I go walking in with my bag, and I walked up and reported in, and they said, okay, go ahead and change into your suit, and you can go check in at wardrobe. So I didn't see any place around to change, so I just walked to the end of the table where it was kind of cleared up, and there was a bunch of gals sitting there, and I said, excuse me, ladies, do you mind if I put on my outfit here? And they said, no. So I go ahead and I sit down, and I open up my bag, and I start sliding on my Santa pants over my regular pants, you know, and put on the coat and all that, and I'm seeing all these people craning their necks and looking. So I finally get it all on, and I go over to wardrobe. And what happened was a lady came up to me and said, oh, my God, when you walked in, we were saying, that guy really looks like Santa. And then we found out we were Santa. And so somebody actually came up to me while I was talking with one of the production assistants and said, excuse me, can I get my child's picture taken with you? Oh. And the production assistant said, you know what, you're not supposed to have a camera on the set. But if you go way back there in the corner, I'm sure nobody will say anything. So I wound up getting my picture taken about 6 or 7 times with various children. But the next day when I came back, almost every parent was there with cameras, and I must have had my picture taken with all the children and quite a few of the adults.
That's funny.
So it was just like a day at work. But the amazing thing about that was I got this phone call where they said, you know, you have your choice of call times. You can either come in at 6 p.m. because we're going to shoot your shot in the evening tomorrow, or if you would like, you can come in at 12 and have lunch with the director's staff. And I thought, well, that's cool, so that's what I did. So I got to come in and have lunch, and it was all because they were interested in the fact that I was a professional Santa. And of course, I got to meet Cameron Diaz, and while I was talking to the production assistant, there was a hand on my shoulder, and I hear, hello, Santa, and I turn around, and Cameron Diaz says, oh, my gosh, you really do look like Santa. And I went, oh, and let me tell you, you look like Cameron Diaz. Or she goes, you look like the real Santa. And I said, you look like the real Cameron Diaz. And she goes, so I understand that you are the real Santa? And I said, well, I'm the genuine Santa. And she thanked me personally for helping to keep Christmas alive. But when I tell the story, I go, you know, I had this moment with Cameron on the set, and she thanked me personally for my performance. So, you know, it's my memory. I figure I can spend it a little if I want.
Awesome. So that basically that was a fun experience for you, huh?
Oh, it was a great experience. The only thing happened was they went over one day of shooting, and because of the fact that I'm a professional Santa, they said, "Hey, can you come back tomorrow?" Even though that wasn't a scheduled day, and I said, "I'm sorry, I can't. I've got two daycares and a daycare and 2 nursing homes to visit tomorrow." And they said, "Well, can't you get somebody else to do that?" Well, people sometimes book me a year in advance to be Santa because I'm hard to get at Christmas, and so. I said, you know, hey, it wouldn't be right, you know, and I gave you guys my schedule. So they said, you know what? They came back later and said, we've rearranged the shooting schedule. If you can be here at first light, we'll get you in and get you out. And that was really cool because when I got there and we were shooting in the South Shore area at this little supermarket and the traffic was going real slow, but I climbed in the van with the director's staff, and they actually had the police come and escort us up there so that they could get me in and get me out.
That's cool.
And, yeah, that was cool. They treated me like I was Santa.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry. Now, the next film, Hillbilly Bob Zombie.
Oh, my gosh. Hillbilly Bob Zombie, I got to tell you, one of my favorite films, and the reason it was one of my favorite films was because, well, first off, my good friend Ray Basham, who's a little bit of a nut anyway, he decided that he wanted to make his own movie. He'd always had this desire to do it. But he realized that in making a movie the first time, I'm going to make so many mistakes because well, to be quite honest with you, there was a number of mistakes in the previous movie that he and I were in together that was somebody else's first movie. So he kind of learned from that. He goes, since I'm making my first movie, I know there's going to be some dumb things, mistakes. I'm going to just make a farce. And he wanted to do a zombie film because Ray and I, we go to horror conventions all the time together, and he's into zombies as much as I am. So he goes, and what he had around him was he lived in the hills in Ohio and said, all my neighbors are hillbillies, and so I'm just going to make a hillbilly zombie film. And I was supposed to play the part of Grandpa, and he wanted me to be in his film only because I was an actor, and he knew that I took the stuff seriously, and because we were friends, he wanted. But my only line was to look at. There was the guy who wound up playing my son was supposed to be retarded. So as a grandpa, I was supposed to look at him at one point, and my only line was, "Boy, I think the best part of you ran down your mama's leg." Well, what happened was the guy that he got to play the father, Hillbilly Bob, was a friend of his who was a hillbilly. But the guy couldn't memorize his lines, and he froze when he got the first time the camera was on him. So Ray comes to me and says, "Hey, Sal, I've got this problem. What do I do?" And I go, "I don't know, but if you want, I know the lines, And he goes, "You do?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, then, would you mind being Hillbilly Bob?" And I said, "No, man. If you want me to, I'll do it. I'll do whatever it takes." And so I wound up playing the dad. Now, the funny thing about Ray is Ray wanted this to be funny, so there were lots of times where I would say, "Hey, we can throw a joke in here." And so what happened was that's how some of the jokes got in there. It's because of my comic background. And one of the reviews said that I had some of the best lines, but that I delivered them well, too. So that was a good thing. So I wound up inadvertently kind of co-writing some of the lines and stuff. It's one of those cases where Ray was very open to suggestion. Now, I will tell you a funny story, though, because Ray said, one of the things about it is all my friends are a bunch of hillbillies, so I can get them down, and it shouldn't be any problem. Well, the first time he's going to have a big zombie shoot, Ray has all these guys come down. He brings his pickup truck down to the set that he had built on his land, and he goes, "Guys, while I get you guys in makeup," he goes, "I did bring some beer down for you. There's 7 cases iced down in the back of this truck."
No.
Well, by the time he got the makeup on the third zombie, what happened was most of them had drank up all the beer, and they left.
No way.
Yeah, so here we are, and it's early in the day, and all the zombies have gotten drunk and either staggered off or drove off, because most of them were his neighbors, so,
That's funny.
Yeah, so after that, he would hold off on the beer, and then I told him, I said, and save the bottles and refill them with water, that's the best thing to do.
Now,
and,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, Brenna Roth, tell everybody about the story you told me.
Oh, about, the fact that I slept with Brenna?
Yeah.
Oh, that was, that's one of my fun things is, I'm getting a little long in the tooth. I started acting about 10 years ago when I was 45 years old, and that's kind of up there for a lot of actors. But, one of the fun things about it is a lot of the sets that I'm on, I get paired up with young girls. Like, I told somebody we were shooting in October one time in Ohio, this zombie film, and it was a combination zombie vampire film. But every time the director would yell cut, these rather scantily dressed young ladies that were maybe in their early 20s or late teens would run over and hug me because I was so warm. And I said, one of the things I love about being an actor is if in any other job I'd be somehow a pervert, but here it's perfectly accepted. Brenna is an actor who is one of she's a Tromette also. Lloyd Kaufman has quite a following for his movies, his Tromaville movies, and the gals that play sort of they're kind of sexy kittens, in a lot of his films. They're Tromettes is what they're called. That's the nickname that's given to them. Well, Brenna's a Tromette, and she's been in a number of films where, she's been in some big motion pictures like Spider-Man 3, I believe, but she's also quite popular in the horror genre, and she's about half my age. So Ray chose to have her play the wife, and I wound up becoming the husband. So here I am playing the husband of a girl who's about half my age. And we were the two actors that were on the set. Everybody else was, neighbors. So while we're there on his set, at the end of the shooting day, Ray said, rather than me taking you guys into town and putting you up in a hotel, and because we want to get an early start filming tomorrow, why don't you guys just stay here? Well, he had an L-shaped sofa. Brenna wound up sleeping on one end. I wound up sleeping on the other. Our feet were the closest body parts to each other, and there was still probably about 2 feet between us. And but the next morning I woke up, and I go to the restroom to do what people normally do when they first wake up, and I come back, and as I'm putting on my boots, Brenna, she rolls over and she says, "Do I smell coffee?" And I said, "Yes, Ray's wife is making coffee." And she goes, "Oh, is Ray up?" And I said, "No, he's sleeping in, but she's going to wake him up at the last possible minute." So she goes, she looked and she noticed that I had this grin on my face. So she goes, "What are you grinning about?" And I says, "Well, I just realized that I can tell everybody I slept with Brenna Roth." And she goes, "Well, technically that's true." And I go, "The heck with technically, I'm 50 years old and you're 25. I'm going to milk this for all I can." So we're down on the set, and what happens is Ray comes down, and we're starting to rehearse a few things, and Ray says, "Sal, you're in a good mood." And I said, "Well, last night I slept with Brenna." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I guess you did." Well, all these guys are down there, and now they've been hitting on Brenna because, well, she's not an unattractive gal at all. And what happens is, so they're all kind of weighing out the possibilities, you might say. And so during the course of the day, all of a sudden, Brenna yells during one of the breaks. She yells, "Quit it. Just knock it off." She goes, "Look." She goes, "None of you, I'm not sleeping with any of you. If there's an actor on this set that's earned the right to sleep with me, it's Sal Lizard. He and I are both professionals, and we've known each other for a long time. I sure as hell am not sleeping with any of you stupid hillbillies." Yeah. What happened was everybody calmed down. It was handled. But I had this idea, so I go back home, and on my website at actorsal.com, I maintain a blog, and if you look through the archives, there's an archive that says, "I slept with Brenna Roth." And if you pull it up, it shows a picture of Brenna, and on there, in the article, well, I call it Brenna, and I said, "Hey, Brenna, are you at your computer?" And she says, "Sure." I says, "Check out my website." She goes, "Sal, I've checked out your website. It looks good." I said, No, check out my latest blog entry." So she goes, "Hold on." Then I hear, "Oh, my God." And I said, "Do you want me to take it down?" And she goes, "Well, let me read it. I'll call you back." So after a little bit, I get a phone call back from Brenna. She goes, "No, you can leave it up." She goes, "You explained that we really didn't sleep together and, we didn't have sex, and you also were talking about the film and all that." And she goes, "So, it's a catchy title, and, once people read it, they're going to know what's going on anyway." So I think it's kind of funny. So we left it alone. Well, several months later, I run into Brenna, maybe 5 or 6 months later, at a horror convention. She goes, "You know what? I guess I've been on 7 auditions since you put that up on your website." And she goes, "And at some point, somebody would look at me and say, 'Did you really sleep with Sal Lizard?'" And I said, "Oh, really?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I said, "I'm so sorry." She goes, "Oh, don't worry about it. It just proves to me that what idiots guys can be when they don't read the story. They just read the headlines."
Right.
And but she thought it was okay. It's kind of funny. So it's still there on my website for anybody who wants to read it. But there's another part to this story. I am at a horror convention in Kentucky, and I'm getting ready to produce Next Door, my first film as a producer. And what happens is I take a script down to a good friend of mine, Nicole Crew. Nicole told me she wanted to be in my first film, and I certainly loved Nicole and wanted her to be. So she agreed to do the part. So I'm taking her down the script, and while we're standing there, she's talking to Jessica Cameron, an up-and-coming screen queen also, out of Ohio. And so here we are, and we're in Kentucky. I hand Nikki the script, and she says, "Is there is there a scene in here where we sleep together? And I said, no, there's not. And then she goes, well, do you think maybe you can have the writer write one in? And I said, well, that just wouldn't make any sense because of who our characters are. And then she goes, well, can we at least take a nap together on the set? And I said, what are you getting at, Nikki? And she goes, well, Reynolds shouldn't be the only one that's be able to say that she slept with you.
Oh,
and all of a sudden, she goes, after all, I'll even get a T-shirt and wear it so that, and you can get a picture of it for your website. And Jessica Cameron, of course, is standing there. She goes, well, wait a minute. I want to sleep with him, too. And so, of course, I'm like, yeah, right. So I walk back to my table where, to sign the autographs and stuff. Don't think a whole lot about it until later I'm at Cinema Wasteland, and I'm with Ray Basham and Shane Michaels, who's the director on a film that I'm going to produce in the spring with him called Pray to God. But I'm telling them the story, and what happens is, all of a sudden, Ray goes, well, wait a minute. Do you remember the time that you and I were going up to New York to be an I Am Legend, and you pulled over in the rest area and took a nap? And does that mean I get to wear a T-shirt that says I slept with Sal Lizard also? And I said, I don't think so. And Shane Michaels goes, dude, that would be so funny if you get the T-shirt and I'll wear one too. And I said, yeah, the last thing I need is a bunch of guys wearing this T-shirt. And two of the people that work with Shane said, one of them being a gal, Patty, she goes, well, I would wear it. And then her boyfriend, Brian, goes, yeah, I would too. And so Ray goes, yeah, you get a whole bunch of people wearing these T-shirts and say, I slept with Sal Lizard. And then you can be in front of the crowd with this look on your face like, wait a minute, what's up with this? That type thing. So I said, yeah, okay, fine. And then one of the other people comes over and goes, I think that's a great marketing idea. You should do it. And I said, I'll think about it. Well, then I happened to be in Indianapolis. Well, no, before Indianapolis. I was on the set, and the guy who composed our music, Nigel, he comes up to me and says, Sal, do you have one of our CDs, our latest CD? And I said, no. He goes, would you like one? I said, oh, sure. So he gets it, and he writes something inside the cover, and he hands it to his significant other, Allison, who's also in the band with him. And she writes something inside the cover, and then they hand it to me. So I look at it, and I bust out laughing because Nigel had written, Sal, I want to sleep with you. Love, Nigel.
Oh,
and he goes, yeah, I heard you can get a T-shirt. And but over on the other side, Allison wrote, Nigel, I already have. Love, Alice. So yeah, they said, yeah, we heard we can get a T-shirt if we sleep with you. So we want a T-shirt. Now I don't know how they found out about that, but I thought it was pretty funny. So then I'm at this famous Monsters of Filmland convention in Indianapolis, and a couple of months ago, and what happened was, sure enough, I had about 5 or 6 people walk up to my table and say, hey, is it true that if I take a nap with you or something, I can get a T-shirt that says I slept with Sal Lizard? So,
oh, my God.
Yeah, so it's something that actually I have a couple of friends that are contributing money to help me get T-shirts, so that by Cinema Wasteland, I'll have T-shirts with the Laughing Zombie Productions thing on the back, but on the front of them they'll say I slept with Sal Lizard. And we're going to see how many of those sell and how many people actually will want their picture taken.
Okay, extra large, Sal.
Extra large, that's your size? Okay.
Extra large.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Now, I know I don't want to run you up too long, but there's 2 things that I mentioned. Well, one, and then you mentioned about your own movie you're going to produce. But I see that you were a courtroom extra in Mountain Mafia.
That was another one of those funny things. A good friend of mine, Cherokee Hall, he wasn't a good friend at the time because I didn't know him, but he put out a casting call saying that he was looking for for people for his movie Mountain Mafia. I told him I'd like to audition, but he was shooting in Lexington, Kentucky, and I was living in Circleville, Ohio. Right. And that was quite a haul. And so when I asked him, about pay, of course, it was an independent film, wasn't really paying anything. So it was not cost-effective for me to go down and be in it. Right. Now, Ray, who had Ray wanted to act also, be involved in the film industry. So when I had an opportunity I met Ray on the set of a movie called Wicked Business, and where he played a homeless guy. And Ray and I got to be pretty good friends. So then we were together in Abe's Tomb, and then I had an opportunity while I was in I Am Legend to get Ray on that set, so I did. And then another time I had to come up to Massachusetts to finish up a party scene with Ichabod, and I had asked Ray if he wanted to come up here with me because he'd never been to the Massachusetts, New Hampshire area. And he said, sure. So he wound up being a second camera in Ichabod and playing one of the townsfolk at the tavern. So Ray and I, we had this involvement with each other. You know, we're good friends. And so what happened was, oh gosh, I lost the question.
Oh.
What was it?
That you were the, oh crap. You were the courtroom extra?
Oh, the courtroom extra. So what happened was Ray wanted to be involved in more films. So I told him when I saw this thing where they were just looking for extras, he said, I'd like to go down there and be in Mountain Mafia. So I called up Cherokee and I said, hey, you know, if you're looking for a couple of extras, I know it doesn't pay anything, and I know that, you know, I didn't get cast, but I have a really good friend that wants to be in the film. Would it be all right if I bring him down? And he said, oh, sure. So Ray and I went down there, and we were courtroom extras. The bad thing about it was I had already gotten involved with I Am Legend, and I may have even already done, I had already done the box. And so I was SAG eligible. Actually, I was at that point where I couldn't be in another SAG movie unless I joined SAG. So the rumor was, everybody knew that I was a SAG must join. So, and that's a step up, into the professional acting field for a lot of people.
Right.
So, a lot of people contacted me and asked me if before I would join SAG, if I would just do a little walkthrough on their film or some little cameo appearance, so that in case I ever made it big, they could always sell their film and say, and Sal Lizard was in it. So what happened was, sure enough, Cherokee said, yeah, come on down and be in it. So when I got down there, Ray and I, we signed up, we went in, and we were in the courtroom. But every time they would pan the camera, they would focus on me, and I don't even know that they got any more of Ray than maybe his shoulder.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so, but, he is listed as being in it, so, if nothing else, he got the credit.
Right.
So it's so bad because I wasn't there for me, I was there for Ray.
Right.
And yet they seem to really focus a lot on me, so, and not so much Ray.
Did you meet that sexy Tiffany Shepis?
Have I met her?
Actually, on the set.
No.
No. But you haven't?
No, I've met a number of other gals, but not her. We were at a convention together, and she's just not one of the people that I managed to run into while I was there. You know how it is when you're at the convention, you're behind the table. You're pretty much stuck there if you're signing autographs because nobody else can sign them for you. If you're selling comic books or movies or something, you can step away and anybody can fill in for you.
Right.
But if you're there as a celeb or to sign autographs, nobody can do that. So, it's unfortunate, but yeah, you're stuck pretty much.
All right.
So,
okay.
Often I didn't get to meet other actors that were there.
Yeah, I seen her in that Cyrus. I guess that's her newest one. I guess.
Mm-hmm.
She's she can play any part. I like her.
Well, I'm getting ready to produce another film in the spring called Exit 19 is the working title right now, and it's a werewolf film. And I was speaking with the director, Andy Sawyer, last night, and one of the people that he wants me to talk to about being in the film would be, Tiffany Shepis. And so I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, go for it. I think she's a well-rounded actress. I mean, she can play a lot of different parts.
Yeah.
A good screamer.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, one of the actresses that I worked with most recently that I was really impressed with, and we haven't gotten to Next Door really yet, but that was the other one that you said that I mentioned that you wanted to touch on. Lynn Lowry was in that film, and she actually has agreed at this point. She's I've got a letter of interest from her, but she's actually looking at being with me in another future film where she will be playing my wife.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's kind of cool. The thing about it is that I produce films under the SAG ultra low budget right now, and so they're SAG indies. But the one thing that happens is, especially in independent film where people are usually taking their life savings or hawking the car, doing whatever they can to get their film made, and sometimes they don't get made, and even if they do get made, usually the last people to get paid are the actors. And so one of the things that happened was my wife, knowing how much I love acting, she said, when is this going to quit costing us money and you start making money? And of course, there is the I'm paying my dues aspect when you first start out. You do a lot of stuff. But after a while, yeah, it gets kind of old. Now, it's not a lie to say that, at least in the independent films, if they're going to pay anybody, they're going to pay the girls first.
Yep.
And so, what happens is when I was asked to join SAG, a couple of my buddies who I met in independent films, actually on the sets of Feeding the Masses and Creature from the Hillbilly Lagoon, they were both SAG actors in the Boston area, and they told me, they said, you don't want to join SAG if you can hold out. And I said, why? And they both told me the same thing. Well, you won't get any really good parts in films because those go to the big Hollywood names. And so the best you can do is work as an extra. Well, I'd already worked as an extra, but I got paid for it. And I said, you get paid to be an extra, right? And he said, right. And I said, well, see, I'm still in the film as an actor, even though I'm a background actor. I said, and that's honest work. And I don't have to be in the limelight. I don't have to have the leading roles. So I went ahead and joined the Screen Actors Guild. Well, so then all of a sudden I found that I couldn't do any more independent films because SAG actors have to get paid. So I was a little bit bummed out until I found out about SAG Indies, and that for a budget of less than $200,000, you can actually produce a film under the ultra-low budget contract. And, and it has some conditions, so I started producing SAG Indies. And the thing that is good about it is my films are insured, and I use the payroll companies to make sure that, to SAG insist on this, to make sure that, people's pensions and taxes and all that are taken care of first.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the insurance, of course, is, in case something happens. And it just makes sense from a business aspect. So, and the thing about it is I've learned to talk to people, and so one of the things I've been lucky on my first film was it was a small enough budget. I was able to go out and talk to friends at horror conventions and friends in Starfleet and friends and, who just had known me from other films and things of that nature, and, of course, family members. And I was able to raise enough money to actually shoot Next Door. Now, of course, after this, the next two films that I'm looking at are going to have higher budgets, but, once I've proven, and especially once I sell the Next Door and pay back some of the investors, it should make it a lot easier to raise some of the money for the other projects.
Right.
So that's my thing is I started doing these films, and the one thing that I do is the motto, I guess, on my films is everyone gets paid. Now, granted, there may be some little roles where people who aren't professional actors, and they just want to be extras in a film, and we're only going to use it for a couple hours. They may not get paid. Of course, we feed them, but anybody who puts any serious time into working on the cast or crew is going to get a paycheck on a film that I produce. And so I'm really having a good time, and I'm satisfying the needs of SAG, and it also gives me an opportunity to have a pretty decent part in the film.
Excellent.
So that brings us to Next Door.
There you go.
All right.
So you're going to start filming that in April then?
Oh, no, Next Door, I just got finished.
I'm sorry.
That's one that I just got done with, and actually on the night of the 17th, which is, well, at this point, it's 6 nights from now, a week from last night, we're having the premiere in Maynard, Massachusetts, and the really great thing about it is the cast and crew, with the exception of Lynn Lowry and Nicole Pruitt, the cast and crew will be there. Our families will be there, and and it's local to most of the actors. So, you know, a lot of friends and coworkers, and like even the guy who works at my post office is going to be there. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's like it's going to be an exciting night for me, and I hope the rest of for director Andy Sawyer, and I hope for everyone else. And then after that, we have one more free showing in the town where we shot it so that the townspeople can see it, since we use so much of their town. And then it starts hitting the horror conventions and festivals. And so I'm trying to get it into festivals now, out in L.A. and, you know, in Memphis, Tennessee, and some of these others. And so we'll see what happens with it. I'm real excited about it. The trailer's online, and we do have a website for it, and it's called Next Door Film, you know, 3 words all smushed together with no spaces, .com.
Nice.
Yeah. And a little bit, you know, something can be learned about my other film projects as I get them. I do have a website for the production company at LZP Films. LZP stands for Laughing Zombie Productions. That's my production company.
Sweet.
And so as I get film projects, you know, the artwork and the storyline, and once we've got it registered, I'll go ahead and put that information up there. And, you know, right now we, on the movie Pray to God, we're in the process of casting, and we've got some pretty good people involved. And because the director wants to keep some of it under wraps, we unless it's already announced on the site, we're not really saying who we've gotten, even though we've gotten a number of really high-profile horror actors.
Cool.
Yep.
Way to go, Sal.
Yeah.
I
feel pretty good about it.
I hope the best for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know, the one thing about it is I used to be in the IT business, and, you know, with the .com bubble burst, I, you know, found myself overqualified for a lot of the help desk positions and stuff that were opened up. So I went from making a 6-figure income down to making a no-figure income. And and I had to reinvent myself. And my wife, you know, my grandpa used to tell me you should always try to do what you something you love. And since I couldn't be involved with the IT world anymore, the only other thing I really enjoyed was acting. I mean, I enjoyed sex too, but nobody's gonna pay me for that. So I figured rather than starving trying to be a gigolo, I would go into acting. And I was involved with community theater until somebody said to me, you know, hey, you want to go be in a zombie film? And I said, what's it pay? And they said, it don't pay anything. And I said, well, then why in the hell would I want to do that? And what happened was, it was kismet, I suppose, but what happened was it was going to be shot in Rhode Island, in Warwick, just outside of Providence. And it just so happened that the bagpipe band that I was in was going to be involved with the Rhode Island Highland Games. And so it was on the same day that they were shooting this zombie film. So I figured, what the heck, since I'm going down there anyway, I'd go ahead and do the zombie film. And that's when I was in Richard Griffin's Feeding the Masses. And I was on the set, and I met some Tromette gals like Nikki Irene, and all of a sudden I found the magic of movie making was really attractive to me, and I decided that's what I wanted to keep doing. And then I was in Richard Griffin's movie, of course, Seepage, which later became Creature from the Hibble Lagoon, and by then I was pretty much hooked. And so I've been in about 36 films since then. Some of them I'm quite proud of, some of them not so much. And But, they all brought me to where I'm at today, and now I feel pretty good because, like I said, there's something to be said about the magic of movie making. And I thought it was fun in front of the camera, but I've always had this desire to, I'm attracted to business and business decisions and making sure things are done right.
Right.
And so I've been on enough films that I've seen things that I, just like everyone else, I said, well, if I was doing it, I would do it this way. And after about 3 dozen films, I felt like, I really want to do this. And fortunately for me, SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, offers conservatories, they call them. It's these monthly training programs. They're not very expensive, and but you have to have your dues paid up, etc. And they started doing some on producing your own films. And so I went to those, and I felt empowered and confident enough. And we took the shooting schedule to SAG for this particular film, and they said, "Do you think you can shoot all this in 9 days?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And they said, that's an awfully aggressive schedule. But at the end of each shooting day, we were right on schedule. And we actually got all the principal photography shot in 9 days. And then, of course, the director picked up a few, pickup shots as he was editing it. And he edited it in 1 month. And so here we are with our our premiere coming up and hitting the festival circuit. The only thing I haven't been able to do that I've been trying to accomplish is just getting the movie listed in the IMDb. First they said, we're not going to list it because, it isn't finished yet. So we finished it. And then they said, no, we're not going to list it unless you can tell us where it's going to be shown. It has to be in a festival or some sort of public showing. So I checked their IMDb list, and one of the places that they have listed is Cinema Wasteland, and I am scheduled to show it. It's on the website the 2nd of October. So I contacted them and told them that, and then they said, well, that's not a real official festival that's sanctioned. It's not one of our special festivals. And so now, until it's listed in one of the festivals that they recognize, they will not list it. Even though I've got Len Lowry and Nicole Crew and I've been in a few dozen of these films, and I told them it's finished, the trailer's online, and all this stuff, and they're still saying no. They're sticking by their guns. Now, I did see where if I go on now that IMDb is owned by Amazon, if I go on to Amazon and create a way where I can distribute the film through Amazon, they'll list it in the IMDb right away. So I think that it's a marketing thing, and it's a shame because, so many of us depend on the IMDb. I actually depend on it as a part of the marketing. When you go and you try to put it in film festivals, one of the things they ask you is the title in the IMDb. And it's almost like a catch-22. No, it's not in the IMDb until I get it in a film festival. So,
yeah, it's oh God, IMDb. It's good to a point, but I don't know. People who, if you haven't noticed, if you see a movie, they have that rating, the rating of the movies, or out of 10. Horror movies always get the shittiest end of the stick.
Oh yeah.
Oh, please.
Well, for some reason, people don't consider, it's kind of interesting because, like I said, I'm a professional Santa, and people ask me all the time, what are your favorite movies to do? Now, I would love to do Santa movies. I mean, who doesn't want to be a hero to the children and all that?
Right.
But what happens is, no genre, and I really love sci-fi. Heck, I'm the president of Starfleet, for at least for another few months. So I love sci-fi. That's one of my favorite genres, too. But I haven't been able to break into those. I do horror films. And but horror films, the sci-fi conventions, they're not so well supported as they used to be by their fan base. And then, if you're in a Santa Claus movie and you go to a Santa convention, people aren't going to come up and ask you for your autograph because you look just like the guy next to you. So, right. So what happens is the movie genre that the fans still support quite well is horror, and I have people who, oh, heck, it's one of those cases where it seems like no matter where I go, somebody has seen something I've been in. When I was at the Indianapolis convention for Famous Monsters of Filmland, a gal came up to me, and as I told you, she said she wanted to be my first stalker. But the thing is she lives out in Colorado, and she told me, she goes, I've seen some of your work, and I really enjoy your films. And of course, I've got Lisa, the gal up in Canada, or not Canada, Michigan, who was the one who blogged on the website that she was going to try to get a copy of every film. I actually sent her a few of my films and signed them, and said, after all, you're my first proclaimed fan, so here, have a couple of my movies. And I got an email back from her today telling me how much she enjoyed the movie and how she's still looking for as many as she can find.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so, if I seem to have the respect and the regard of many of my peers, and it's such a small world. I mean, when Lynn Lowry was here last, and of course she lives out in L.A., she and I were talking, and she was talking to me about a script that she had written, that she had a professional scriptwriter write for her. And I said, really? She goes, yeah. She goes, I don't know if you know him or not, but his name's Richard Griffin. And I said, really? Richard Griffin from Connecticut? And she goes, yeah. And I said, oh, yeah, he's the director-producer of my first two films. So, it's a small world after all.
It is.
And it's kind of cool now that I can't leave my cell phone laying around because, I've got actors and actresses' phone numbers in there. And, I have their home numbers and their cell phone numbers, so I have to guard it with my life. But, it's kind of cool to be able to say to folks, oh, yeah, let me call her up and see if she's interested.
Right. Well,
yeah.
Yep. I know the feeling, though, Sal.
Say what?
I know the feeling. I got some numbers on my phone that I guard.
Yeah. It's it's like, oh man, I my phone is hardly ever very far from me, and certainly if I'm anywhere other than in my house, it's in my pocket. So
I know the feeling.
Yep.
All right, Sal. I appreciate you coming on.
Well, I certainly appreciate your taking the time to listen to me.
I'm going out tonight. I hear there's a mega party on Long Island. What do you gotta lose?
I have plans. I can't even pay my electric bill, and I spent $100 on a house. It's gotta be a scam. It has to be.
Hello?
I'm calling about a house I recently won at an auction.
It is so great to have this old place occupied again.
For those who toil most of their lives, death can be a welcome relief.
Did you know the previous residents?
So what is it that you were looking for?
Floor plans, original building specs, former owners.
I can't release that information, Miss...
Duval.
What do you want?
The house. It's an evil place.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Everything was fine last night. It's just a house, Anna.
We have to get out of here!
I'll bet you when you get settled in here, you just won't want to leave.